All righty.
Alrighty.
Here we are. What's Gucci, people? Let us know who's in the chat, who's hanging out with us.
Alrighty.
Oh, I thought I had the audio in my ear from the stream or something, because I heard you say already earlier. Then you said it again. I was like, oh wait, do I have the stream?
Nah, I said it.
I
said it twice.
No, that's funny. I don't know if anyone else can relate, but for some reason, for Badake and I, there's a song stuck in our head. I can put my Gucci on. I can wear my Louis Vuitton. Anybody else? Just us? Probably just us. What's up, Paco? I see. He says, fellow degenerates, leave a like or suffer the consequences. I don't know what the consequences are, but yes, every like would be appreciated.
Yeah.
Casey, no, we will do those more towards the draft. ESPN Junkie. So did you change your name, Alex? Welcome in. Marvin says, I just made a trade, 10-man Superflex, full PPR, projected pick 204, 205, and a random 24 second for McLaurin, Jeff Wilson, Darrell Henderson, and a 25 fifth. Yeah, I think that's pretty good value. I definitely like your side of the trade there. Well done. What's up, Kev? Welcome in. Casey says, looks like 3 seconds for Terry. To me, not bad. The other two I don't really trust, which is fair. Alex says, in a 10-man league, I like it. Bob Likes Cheese says, what's good, boys? Do y'all see Gibbs getting drafted in the first round? I have the second pick in the rookie draft, and I'm thinking of taking him. Well, you know what? We're going to... I can tell you in this... Sure. Yeah, we're going to talk about it here in a second, because in this mock draft, I know that Gibbs gets drafted, and hang on with us. And when we get to that point, we will talk about Jahmyr Gibbs in full. Do us a favor, guys. If you have yet to do so, drop a like on the stream.
You like that?
Do it for Kirko Tuggins. My guy Kirko Tuggins, absolutely balling out.
What an opportunity.
In Minnesota, doing his thing, which we love to see. Over on Twitch, I did see a question.
Gosh.
Overall, my thoughts are that no, I would not give up Kelsey. I would keep him. All right, so just so everyone knows what's going on, we are about to review a 2023 NFL mock draft. This mock draft is brought to you by Tankathon, which is a website that we use a lot when looking at draft orders. They have mock drafts on there as well. Yeah, so with the updated current draft order, we're going to look at a mock draft, and we're going to talk about how these prospects, if they were to land in these draft spots for 2023, how it might impact their dynasty value, if we might take them higher or lower in a rookie draft, and just kind of have fun and like visualize what this could mean for these prospects if they actually landed in those scenarios. So
yeah,
we are going to leave time at the very end for Q&A. We'll do our best to interact with the chat, but just keep in mind that if we don't interact with the chat, it's just because we want to make sure that people who watch it later are able to, have a good time as well. But we, keep chatting with us in the chat. Let us know what you think about these picks as we go through them, and we'll have a good time together. Again, do us a huge favor if you have yet to do so, and drop that like if you don't mind. That will be greatly appreciated. All right. So again, this mock draft is brought to you by Tankathon, and the draft order is updated with the first pick. The Houston Texans are still there at the 101 of the 2023 draft after they lost this week. Or I think they lost this week. And they take C.J. Stroud, quarterback out of Ohio State.
CJ.
I'm pretty sure this was how it was last week as well.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken.
It was the same thing like last week, and it was CJ that went to the Texans and not Bryce. So yeah. By the way, really quick before we continue, on your side, can you put my volume up on?
I actually just did, yeah.
Okay, because it was pretty low. It feels pretty low.
I just put yours up. Let us know, guys, if it's too high or too low.
Yeah, let me know if I'm like peaking with them. It kind of sounds like I'm, like I'm in the mic. It sounds weird like that.
Okay.
Just yeah. But anyways, yes, it is CJ to the Texans. We said this last week. John Mechie, Damian Pierce. They do have another pick in the first round, if I'm not mistaken, for the Browns' first round. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, they do have another pick. I believe right now it's actually a top 10 pick. So I'm curious to see in this mock draft. I had a little glance, but I can't remember their second pick. So I'm curious to see if they went wide receiver
or something
with that second pick to give CJ Stroud a little boost here on this offense. But the question, look, here's the deal with CJ. In case you don't know much about him, you probably do at this point, but the IQ is incredible for CJ. He has a great ability to read multiple options on a play. He's not a one-read quarterback at all. He can read through 2, 3, 4 options on any given play. He's not going to impress you with his stats on the ground. However, he's not an immobile quarterback. He just chooses to use his arm and extend plays that way. Kind of the way that, not to compare him to Patrick Mahomes or to compare him to Josh Allen, but think about the way that they extend plays with their legs. And typically, for Mahomes in particular, his best case scenario is that he extends the play with his legs and he throws it. Not that he takes off with his legs, but he has that ability.
Exactly.
And that's kind of how I view CJ. Again, not to compare him to Pat Mahomes, but he has that ability with his legs to extend plays. High IQ player. The arm strength is there. And typically when we hype up CJ, people are in the chat saying, well, you don't trust Ohio State quarterbacks. But now that we're seeing Justin Fields take some major steps in the NFL, I think people will kind of cool off on that narrative as well. And also, I would say,
Hopefully.
we would always say scout the player, not the helmet. But you put CJ in this offense, it could be really, really interesting. On the year, I think he might be the Heisman favorite. Hard to say, but 34 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions on the year, coming off a 5-touchdown game last week versus Indiana. My bad. And so I think he could be the Heisman favorite at this point, but it'll be a close race between him and a couple other players. But I like this landing spot for him. You know, you got Davis Mills out. Now we've got CJ Stroud there. The running game is going to be at least solid for you with Dameon Pierce. Maybe you keep Brandon Cooks or you trade him, get some other pieces. Then you got Nico Collins. John Mechie comes back. The offensive line is decent. And maybe you pick up another wide receiver for him later in the draft to kind of build around him here in Houston. But as you mentioned before, coaching staff is going to be the most important thing there.
Yeah, coaching staff is going to be huge. And I think what's interesting is one thing I want to say is how CJ could potentially, or how the Texans, I believe, should get a wide receiver in this draft class.
Yeah.
We don't know what that is yet because we haven't looked further into the mock.
Yeah.
But I'll be surprised if they get CJ and don't draft another guy in the top 10 if they have the opportunity to get a Jackson Smith, a Quentin, a Jordan Addison. I think it will be kind of silly of them. I think there's other
especially
places,
if you move on from Cooks, which we
we
anticipate they could.
Exactly, because they wanted to move on from Cooks in the offseason or before the trade deadline. And at the same time, the free agency market for the running back room, maybe for offensive linemen, maybe for defensive players might potentially be good. I don't know that in that market.
The running back room is good in free agency. The wide receiver room is rough.
Exactly. So like if the wide receiver room is rough and you need a weapon, and you're telling me you don't have anyone, it's like, okay, like what are you doing then, right? Like, so
for sure. All right, so CJ Stroud is the 101. He goes to the Texans. At the 102, we have a new second overall pick after this week. This team is the most expensive salary in the entire NFL. They just went out and got some big free agents like Chandler Jones. They traded for Devontae Adams, and they currently have the second worst record in the NFL, and that is the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, this is an interesting conversation because I'm very intrigued what would happen if they were at 2. But at 2, in Tankathon's mock draft, they have the Raiders selecting Bryce Young, quarterback out of Alabama. This is interesting for so many reasons that are quite obvious. Firstly, Derek Carr. The whole reason Devontae Adams wanted to come to Las Vegas was to pair up with Derek Carr and try and do something special with him. Based off of what they did in college, their previous relationship that they had at Fresno State, they've always been great friends. And that was really the reason that Devontae Adams wanted to be traded to the Raiders.
Exactly.
So if this happens, is Devontae Adams happy with it? I mean, I'll be honest. I know he's a good friend, but do you really want to spend the next 5 years with what it's looked like this year for this team? I don't know if he would be upset about it. But putting all that aside, just looking at the prospect and the landing spot, how do we feel about this landing spot for Bryce Young here in Las Vegas?
Oh man! First of all, it would be very, very interesting. Number 2, with all those points that you said, it would be great. And I actually think this could potentially mean a lot.
Yeah.
For Derek Carr's future. Like, for example, we're not gonna like it, but the first thing that popped into mind was send Derek Carr to the Panthers. Cool. The Panthers don't have a quarterback. The Panthers could get a good veteran quarterback unless they draft a Will Levis or unless they don't believe in a guy. Anyways,
I could be wrong, but I think the Panthers are done trading second-round picks for quarterbacks.
Probably. I would agree with that as well. But look, like the things you hit, Devontae Adams, who are the young people here? You know, Darren Waller is getting older. Hunter Renfrow had a breakout year last year, has been living up to expectations. What is the next move? I just feel like this team has to go into full rebuild. Like it doesn't make any sense they try to go all in. They went for Devontae Adams. They got Chandler Jones, a big defensive piece. They got their head coach. They got the defensive coordinator, and it all just crumbled. And they currently have the second pick. Yeah. I think you have to go straight rebuild. You keep Devontae Adams, and if you want Devontae Adams to walk, maybe he walks again. But at the same time, how does that work for a salary cap?
I mean, he just signed a huge deal, so he's not going to be able to walk.
So I think
the team has all control over pretty much that situation.
Imagine
a lot of people might ask the question, like, why not? You keep Derek Carr, why not go to Will Anderson? Well, the issue with that is you just signed Chandler Jones to a big-time deal, and you have Max Crosby, one of the league's, I would say, a top 10 edge rusher in the NFL right now, so it's not necessarily a huge need. I know this early in the draft, you probably shouldn't draft off of need. So maybe Will Anderson is the answer, but at the same time, I think we know that this team is capped with Derek Carr. It's not his fault alone this year, but he's not been incredible. I mean, we have seen certain games, like, for example, I'm trying to remember, there was a game where he was absolutely dominated. I think it was versus the Saints, and he was absolutely dominated, which was a really tough game to watch.
When they didn't score any points.
They didn't score any points.
Other teams that he could potentially go to, which I think would be really interesting, and the team is not in a quarterback position, at least in this draft right now, the Falcons.
Yeah.
Derek Carr, Kyle Pitts, you have your top wide receiver in Drake London. I think that could be a good fit personally.
Yeah.
But that's probably the thought. That's the only team
I
can see.
As far as the fit itself, if Bryce Young goes to the Raiders, personally, I do like this because I believe if that happens, they run it back with this team. And they try and move Derek Carr and play the game where, okay, now we have one of the cheapest contracts in the NFL with a rookie, right? I think they try and play that long game with him. So you bring back Josh Jacobs, I assume. The offensive line is improving. You have Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow will be back, Darren Waller will be back. And you give a lot of weapons for Bryce Young to start to build around. Kevin had a good point in the chat. He said maybe the Raiders put the draft pick on the block and maybe a team wants to move up and they get a ton of draft capital. I think this is one of those drafts where if a team does want to move into the top 1 or 2 or 3 picks, they're going to have to pay a bunch to get there. So that could be smart for the Raiders as well.
At the same time, it's like, it would be dumb if they keep Derek Carr and then still draft. Right?
Yeah.
Like if that was an opportunity, then and people are going to say, oh, let's take advantage. Like the Raiders going to be like, let's take advantage. I feel like the Panthers are going to be like, you shouldn't draft this guy. Like, like why would I give you so much draft compensation when I know you're just going to trade him in the offseason?
If it's not the Panthers, it's someone else, dude. If it's not the Panthers, it's someone else who's going to move up. So you can easily pit people against each other and get the best deal for sure. Yeah. Look, I'll say if this is how it ended up going, 1-2, I would probably draft Bryce Young before I would draft C.J. Stroud in a Dynasty rookie draft. That's how I would approach it. Bryce Young has the much better weapons around him. I think a team that wants to win right now that he can step into. I mean, if you give me a rookie quarterback with Devontae Adams, I'll take that rookie quarterback over maybe having Brandon Cooks on my team. All right, with the 3rd overall pick, the Carolina Panthers miss out on a quarterback. Good job, Panthers, winning against the Falcons. Good job.
Winning against the Falcons.
Did you want to do that? I don't know. You tell me. But here the Panthers take Will Anderson, best player For a lot of people in the draft, so Will Anderson goes to the Panthers. Now all of a sudden you got Will Anderson on one side and you got Brian Burns on the other side. That could be one hell of a edge rushing combo. So I like that for them. All right, and now the Saints, who are absolutely destroying their season, have given the 4th overall pick to the Eagles, and they go Jalen Carter. Huge, big body defensive lineman. I keep saying this all the time. If you like Jordan Davis out of the draft last year, you will fall in love with Jalen Carter. He's even better than Jordan Davis. And I would say he's an even better pass rusher as well than Jordan Davis. But Philly has the advantage of, hey, we really liked Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis together at Georgia. Why don't we do that in the pros? So they pair those two together. And I'm assuming Cox moves on for the Eagles. That could be one hell of a defensive line as well in Philly.
Yeah, just makes sense. And then they also draft somebody that was who drafted there was somebody that they drafted. Who's the one that tore this ACL in training camp? Maybe that was the Ravens that drafted him.
You talking about Ajabo?
Yeah,
out of Michigan.
Did the Eagles get him as well?
No, they didn't. Ajabo went to the Ravens.
Okay. I was confused there. But yeah, look, Jalen Carter, fantastic guy. Let's see what happens. Crazy.
Yeah, all right.
Those two guys.
At the 5th overall pick, a offensive lineman that you and I both really like, Peter Skoronski, goes to the Jags. I think this just continues to help this offense take the next step. I personally wanted them to go offensive tackle in last year's draft. They didn't. They went with my mind is blanking for some reason. I can't believe my mind is blanking. Yeah, the first overall pick.
They went with I know who you're talking about.
Walker, isn't it?
Kayvon Walker? Is it Kayvon Walker?
No, it's not Kayvon. It's Kayvon Thibodeau.
Kayvon Thibodeau.
I don't know why my mind is blanking right now.
Tavion.
I don't believe it's
Travon?
It's Travion Walker, isn't it? Trayvon Walker.
Trayvon Walker? Something like that. We know who.
Trayvon Walker. Trayvon Walker. Yeah, he went first. And anyway, and he's actually been pretty good for them, but I wanted them to go offensive tackle. Now they get a tackle here in Peter Skoronski in the first, with the 5th overall pick. This helps Travis Etienne. This helps Trevor Lawrence. This helps Calvin Ridley. This helps Christian Kirk. So I really like this move for the Jags if this has ended up what they were going to do. Originally we wanted it to be wide receiver. You trade for Ridley. Maybe you go offensive lineman here now.
Yeah, makes sense. I'll be really happy with that. So,
all right, at 6, the Bears don't go wide receiver. They go edge rusher, which, no disrespect to Myles Murphy, but I would really like to see the Bears go wide receiver here. I think they have their pick of whatever wide receiver they want to build around with Justin Fields.
Agreed.
I personally feel like this should be wide receiver or offensive lineman, but fair enough. It's not. At number 7, this is where things get interesting. Quarterback that I have not believed in all offseason. I haven't had a first-round grade on him yet. I haven't seen anything to suggest otherwise. Coming off a awful loss to the worst team probably in the SEC for the past 5 years, we got Will Levis being drafted to the Seahawks. I think they stick with Geno Smith, but we have to talk about this as if it was to have happened in real life. I continually say I don't understand the Will Levis hype. Comes out last week versus Vanderbilt. It was Vanderbilt. 11 for 23, less than 50% of his passes completed. He threw an interception. I mean, you don't lose to Vanderbilt. That's embarrassing. Are we still going off of just the intangibles, the hype, the Josh Allen frame? Is that what we're still going off with Will Levis? Or are you kind of off the train yet?
No, I'm still going with that. And once again, I think I said this last week. They're not setting him up for success in this offense. And the more you see it unfold, the more you kind of understand how everyone is saying this is a pro-ready offense is not the answer. But I think outside of that, for this landing spot specifically, I don't think it makes sense, in my opinion, unless they are going to let him develop behind Geno. Let him develop in a year or two. Is he still a first round grade for me? Probably not anymore, especially the way things are happening. I think once again, they're not setting him up for success. So it's not going to look good for Will at the moment. But
No.
it just doesn't make sense that the Seahawks will draft a quarterback here when they're probably going to sign Gino to a 2-year contract. You know, maybe they go defense or they go O-line or whatever the case may be. So that's a thought process for me.
Yeah. By the way, Vanderbilt this year are 1-5 in their conference. So the only team they've beaten in the SEC is Kentucky. For me, I've been one of those people who have just not understood the Will Levis hype. I still don't, but you know, let's see if he can kind of redeem it rest of season. This was one of those games where you needed to have a smash game. You needed to have a 4-touchdown, high completion percentage, no turnover type game to really get back on track. This is one of the worst teams in the SEC, and we weren't able to beat them. We're supposed to be considered, preseason a top 10 to 15 team in the country. And I understand that the offensive line is not the best for Will, but at the same time, you have to overcome certain things. And there's going to be scenarios in the NFL where if he goes to a team that doesn't have a good offensive line, he's going to have to overcome that for the first couple of years and still develop, kind of like we saw Justin Fields in the last couple of years. So the difference being Justin Fields absolutely balled out in college and showed us that upside.
Yeah.
Don't like the landing spot personally. I don't have a first round grade on Will Levis and don't think that this is realistic. But if it were to happen, I still am not taking him in the first round personally.
Yeah.
Of a rookie draft is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right, with the 8th overall pick, the Detroit Lions get a little bit of help on defense, and they draft Keely Ringo, cornerback out of Georgia. Oddly enough, this pick is from the Rams, by the way. So right now the Lions have a higher pick than the Rams. So that's just, I can't believe we're here. That's crazy. Texans, with the next pick, they don't go wide receiver. They go Brian Breesy, which I understand why you would do this. A lot of people view him as a foundational player. But, man, it would be really fun to get C.J. Stroud some help there with the 9th overall pick. We still haven't seen a wide receiver go off the board.
No.
At number 10, the Steelers go Paris Johnson, offensive tackle out of Ohio State. So they would have been right there with the Raiders if they had lost this week. But they beat the Saints, I believe, so that gave them a worse pick off. But they helped the offensive line, which is something that they desperately need. You have seen it for the past 2 years, where when it was Big Ben last year, this offensive line was struggling, bottom 4 in most analytics, and this year it's kind of been the same thing. So this is desperately a huge need for them.
Yeah, agreed. It's massive for Najee and for Kenny Pickett to go off.
Yeah. All right, at number 11, this is where we see the first receiving weapon off the board, which is kind of crazy to say that it's not a wide receiver.
Not a wide receiver, yeah.
But the Detroit Lions, who just traded away T.J. Hawkinson, go with Michael Mayer, or Meyer. I can't remember exactly how you say his name, but definitely, no doubt about it, the best tight end prospect in this year's draft. Has proven that time and time again out of Notre Dame. We've compared him a little bit to George Kittle, and that's kind of his game. He can block. He can do it all. He's got great hands. He has been the weapon for this team all offseason. So how do we feel about this landing spot here in Detroit? Do you like this for his dynasty stock?
I do like this for his dynasty stock. I think this makes sense it makes sense for this team specifically. Does it make sense in the whole, NFL draft, I guess, scenario? Probably not.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, as in, like, I don't think it would go as high as this, number 1.
Right.
But I think the team makes sense. That's what I mean by that.
Sure. Okay.
So hypothetically, if you were to go to this team, you get rid of TJ Hawkinson, Amon-Ra's there, with J-Mo coming, is going to be coming out in 2023. So I think it just makes sense. You get another weapon. I don't think you invest in another wide receiver. I don't, Khalif Raymond and all these guys aren't the long-term answer, but Amon-Ra and J-Mo are the long-term answer with another guy, another big body. I guess essentially a mobile offensive line that can catch the ball, that can block and do something special in the middle of the field for you. I like this landing spot for him. Is it realistic? I don't think so.
Yeah, I agree. There's no way Michael Mayer goes before these wide receivers. And I don't think he goes in the first 15 picks, but could be wrong. He's put up some pretty good numbers this year at the tight end position. And he's been their best weapon for sure all year at Notre Dame. But at the same time, you typically don't see a tight end go this early. So I like the landing spot. I agree. But maybe it's a round too early.
Maybe.
Yeah, listen, and they do have a couple tight ends in there that they do like, as Kevin pointed out. All right, at the number 11 pick, we had the Lions go Michael Mayer. At number 12, we have little spoiler alert there. At number 12, we have Jackson Smith and Jigba to the Falcons. I'm not sure I really understand this one.
No,
I think there are other areas of need for this team to address. Do I like the way Jackson Smith could complement Drake London and Kyle Pitts? Yes, I think that could be really cool to put him in the slot and see him operate that way. But I feel like this team has a lot of other needs, both on offense and on defense. I'm not sure this is the best landing spot for Jackson Smith.
I completely agree. This would be worst case, in my opinion, worst case scenario. We're still trying Drake London, like the two top 5 guys or top 10 guys that you drafted in the past 2 years, to finally get some work. And you telling me you're going to draft another weapon and you're saying you're going to feed him the ball now?
Right.
It will suck in a fantasy perspective. I think it will be amazing to see them all in the field at once. I think it'll be awesome. Yeah. But in a fantasy perspective, it's like, okay, too many mouths to feed here. What is going to happen? I expect this team, even if they don't get a running back in this draft class, to get a running back in free agency. Yeah. What if Monty goes there? What if Josh Jacobs goes there? You get what I'm saying? Like along those lines, it's like, okay, yeah, what more can we do to help this team? And the real answer is get a quarterback, right? So it's gonna suck for Kyle Pitts. It's gonna suck for Drake London. It's gonna suck for everyone over there. So I don't like the spot, but it'll be awesome to see it.
Yep. I don't like this spot. This definitely would make me more hesitant on him around that 105, 106 in a rookie draft. I probably would look towards the other receivers or the other running backs at that position instead. We haven't figured out the quarterback scenario just yet for our future. We're adding another weapon when we're already struggling to get targets for a team that is centered around the run game. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. So this would not be good. At number 13, you guys might have seen it already. We have a huge name, Bijan Robinson, going to the Arizona Cardinals. For me, I've said this time and time again, I don't care where he goes. He's my 101 locked in. There's not a team that you can point to where it's like, would he go there? Would he not be your 101? There's not a team that you can point to where he's not my 101.
Right.
Love Bijan. I think he's a generational talent. The best running back that's come out of the draft since Saquon Barkley. And, I like this for Kyler Murray. I like this for Arizona's offense. I like this for Hollywood Brown. DeAndre Hopkins, I think this opens up a lot for this team because they're in an air raid offense right now, but you add Bijan Robinson, all of a sudden you become a much more efficient offense as a whole. When this team can run the ball, they are very, very dangerous. So you add Bijan Robinson there, I think that could be an incredible combination of weapons. And yeah, he would be locked in as a 101 for me here. I like this spot.
Yeah, love the spot. I think it'll be great. This offense will be very, very dangerous with Bijan. And it'll be special. I think it'll be special going over there. One thing I would say as a Kyler Murray supporter.
You're not a Kyler Murray supporter.
I know. That's why I said it. Does he take away opportunities from Bijan? I think that still has to be. I think that's
saw that in the past, but we have seen James Conner be very valuable at times with Arizona, specifically last year on the red zone. They decided to take away opportunities from Kyler on the red zone and give it to a running back. So I think they've been more than willing to show that they want to protect him long term. So I don't think his running should be all that much of a concern for a prospect personally.
No, that's fair. I guess I just wanted to throw that out there. I know people.
But I will say, R.I.P. to James Conner if this happens.
R.I.P. to James Conner. That is.
I know he's still got 2 years left on the deal after this year, but that would be a big R.I.P. to him. There's no way you beat out Bijan Robinson.
Yeah.
No way. All right, with the 14th overall pick, we got another absolute blockbuster.
Here we go.
Quentin Johnston to the Packers. which I would love this landing spot for Quentin Johnston. Christian Watson definitely starting to break out. So maybe if he breaks out, you look elsewhere, like rest of season. I think Christian Watson, we could be looking at a potential league winner. I know it was only one game, but there's a lot of reasons outside of that one game that I like Christian Watson as a league winner rest of season. But Quentin Johnston on his own, I mean, he has scored a touchdown in the past 5-6 games straight after starting off really, really rough to begin the year. TCU is on a roll. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the past 5 straight games. So he's been on an absolute roll. I think really those 2 weeks with Oklahoma and Kansas is what put him on the map. We like him, 6'4", 215 pounds. Even though he's a big body, he doesn't really lack speed. So I really do like this landing spot for Quentin Johnston. I probably, like, if this is how it went, I definitely am taking Quentin Johnston over Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah, completely agree. And Jackson is my number 1 in this class. If this were the case, I would definitely be taking Quentin. I love him here. It makes sense going there with Aaron Rodgers. He's lost his big body wide receiver in Devontae Adams, and it just makes sense. This is actually going to happen. We've been saying it for the past 3 years. It's probably not going to happen. But it'd be so funny if they draft a wide receiver and then it just goes, Aaron Rodgers, this year's my last year. After they draft a receiver. Oh man, that'd be so funny.
Yeah, it would be funny. But I mean, I think the only way the Packers do go wide receiver in the first round is if it is still Aaron Rodgers behind center. I don't think they do it otherwise. I think they build on other pieces. But I like this landing spot. We like Quentin Johnston. And I think this could be great for his fantasy value. And Quentin is one of those players where, yes, Aaron Rodgers might only have a couple years left, but I'm going to bet on his talent long term. And a team in Green Bay who has figured out the quarterback position for multiple decades, I'm going to trust them to be able to figure that position out. All right, at number 15, we have the Colts going edge rusher. Then we have the Commanders going a little bit of cornerback help. Some people have Joey Porter as their cornerback 1 in the class. Many more others have Keely Ringo as their quarterback 1. Then at 17, the Chargers go linebacker. At number 18, the Bengals go edge rusher. At number 19, the Bucs get some help for their offensive line, which makes sense. But my question again is, who's going to be the quarterback? We know this is Tom Brady's last year. Likely he retires, but who knows? He could come back. I feel like since the divorce, it sounds crazy, but I think anything is on the table really for Tom Brady. Yeah. So I mean, maybe that's why they make this move. At number 20, we got the Broncos going Cam Sims. Again, really, I think between Cam Sims, Joey Porter Jr., and Keely Ringo, it's different analysts will have, like, it's kind of like a pick your flavor type scenario. A lot of people have all 3 of these guys in different positions. Exactly. At number 21, we have a big one, Jordan Addison heading to the New England Patriots. So finally, Mac Jones, we assume, will be the starter. But finally, Mac Jones gets a weapon that he can build around. No disrespect to Jacoby Myers or Hunter Henry or anyone else there, but that's been something that's definitely lacked in New England. And in the past, Tom Brady has been able to cover a lot of sins for this team. It's pretty much been, give me a wide receiver and I'm going to make them absolutely relevant in the NFL and in fantasy football. You don't have Tom Brady anymore. You have Mac Jones, who needs the help around him as he develops. You put Jordan Addison there. We saw what Mac Jones was able to do with Devonta Smith in college. So different players, but similar builds. I would say Jordan Addison, my biggest comp for him would be Calvin Ridley. So I like this landing spot, both for Jordan Addison and for Mac Jones. If I have Mac Jones, I really want to see this kind of move happen. Yeah, it definitely does make sense. I love the move. This is another team we've been hoping to get a wide receiver in the first round a couple of years now. So that's been the case. Yeah. And now it's here. Jordan Addison, Mac Jones, like you said, can he have a wide receiver like he had with Devonta Smith? So let's wait and see what happens. But I do like this landing spot. It makes sense. And everything is going to fall into line if this is the case, in my opinion. So if this were the 3 wide receivers that went off the board first, I personally would have it as Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison, and Jackson Smith. If these were their landing spots, and again, there would be a difference if I had a stronger opinion on one of these guys as a talent. But I think they all can do something very different in the NFL. They can all be successful in the NFL. I like all of their games, but I think that Quentin Johnson would be my 1, Addison would be my 2, and I would make Jackson my 3 there.
Yeah, and I completely agree. That's exactly what I would do.
All right, at number 22, the Seahawks go edge rusher. At number 23, we get a very interesting surprise pick.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that this pick only happens if Zach Wilson completely shits the bed the rest of the season. And he has multiple games with multiple interceptions. He costs them wins, and they've seen enough where they've decided, okay, we have a good team, but we're not going to win with Zach Wilson. Kind of what they did with Sam Darnold. He still had a year on his contract. I know Zach Wilson has 2 years, but he still had a year on his contract, and they decided, okay, we know we've seen enough. You're not the guy. We're going to go try and find a replacement for you. So they draft Hendon Hooker here, which has been a quarterback that I've been advocating for a lot this year in the college football landscape. Came back, bounced back really good after that loss to Georgia, and he threw up 3 touchdowns for over 355 yards. Also put a touchdown on the ground, so 4 total touchdowns on the year. He has 24 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 5 touchdowns on the ground. He can definitely be in that Heisman conversation as well. Only 2 interceptions on the year. He's very, very smart with the ball. So I kind of understand. Look, if Zach Wilson ends up being the guy, you don't make this pick. But if you think you've seen enough by the end of the year, Hendon Hooker can be that game manager for the Jets to make Garrett Wilson relevant, to make Elijah Moore relevant, to run a successful offense. And he also has a lot of traits that you really like as far as the arm strength, the IQ, the dual threat ability. So I really like this landing spot for Hendon Hooker. This would lock him in as a first-round pick for me in rookie drafts, dynasty rookie drafts.
Yeah, I think the landing spot in a fantasy perspective feels really. I don't think it makes sense in my mind. I think it is 1 year early. Well, actually, Zach Wilson going to his 2nd year. I think it's 1 year early to actually make this move.
Sure.
They did this like you were comparing it to Sam Darnold. Did it at the end of the 3rd year for Sam. So
it was in the 4th, yeah.
It was in the 4th. Okay, it just doesn't make any sense. I think you're just giving up on Zach Wilson a little bit too early. I love the landing spot. I think you're right. In a fantasy perspective, he'll make Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson a lot more fantasy relevant, and they will feel a lot more exciting. I think for the organization that spent so much time and effort and really haven't even seen him on the field for a full season yet. I don't think he's played 18 games as a whole.
Yeah, sure.
So I see the perspective, but I'm not in love with the landing spot.
Sure. I mean, I can't really speak on behalf of like the Jets organization, but from a fantasy perspective, I think that this would be great for Hendon Hooker. It would lock him in as a first-round pick for me personally. And the Jets are good. The Jets are in a tough spot. You have to be honest. Like, if Zach Wilson is not able to prove himself this year, and the rest of the team is ready to go, it's going to be a tough spot for them to be in.
I guess there's going to be so many excuses now, for that team. I guess the one big excuse is like, okay, offense. Elijah Vera Tucker, you lost Mekhi Becton early in the season. You lost Breece Hall halfway through the season, and it's like Zach Wilson just came back when Breece Hall was taken off.
Right.
And it's like, well, let's get him 1 more year with everyone, and let's see what happens. And every single time he's been injured would suck. So hopefully next year he can stay the whole 18 games. And let's see what happens. But interesting.
You got Vera Tucker on IR. You got George Fant on IR. You got Mekhi Becton on IR. You got Breece Hall out for the year. So I definitely understand where you're coming from. I think it is very unlikely they go quarterback. But if they were to do it, then I would really love this landing spot for Hendon. And I honestly, genuinely believe that he could step in and lead this team to more wins right now. I genuinely do think he could. I think he's already grown more than Zach Wilson has. But it's not that I'm anti-Zach Wilson. I just think he genuinely could lead them to more wins right now. Maybe Zach Wilson has a higher ceiling long term if you stick with him and let him develop. But, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, at number 24, we have the second running back off the board, and Jahmyr Gibbs. He goes to the Buffalo Bills. We had this landing spot last time. Personally, I like the landing spot. I think if he lands in Buffalo, I understand that people are worried about him losing touchdowns to Josh Allen on the goal line. But I think they also would like to use him as a receiver out of the backfield. That's been one of his best attributes this year at Alabama. So you pop him into Buffalo. I instantly feel like Nyheim Hines is irrelevant. James Cook is irrelevant. Devin Singletary maybe plays a little bit of a role on third downs. But I think Jahmyr Gibbs falls into a very efficient offense, and I would love this landing spot for him. But I understand it's not like the traditional workhorse landing spot that people would dream about for Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Workhorse landing spot, what's going to happen? Do they just start running just Josh Allen? Do they actually take a step back, like you kind of mentioned, what we saw with Kyler Murray, with James Conner last year? Or is Josh Allen still going to say, nah, this is my team, I'm taking over, I'm a goal line guy, I'll run it out myself, whatever the case may be? Yeah. It's definitely interesting. I'm really interested to see where the Bills go, because we thought the Bills would go running back last year as well, and they didn't. Yeah. Which technically they did, but they did in the third round, Yeah. So I'd be surprised if they go running back in the first round this year, in my opinion.
And I think if you draft a running back like Jahmyr, the game plan changes a little bit. You draw up plays for him. I feel like right now, Devin Singletary, James Cook, you might have like one or two specific drawn up plays for them per game in the passing game. If you draft Jahmyr Gibbs, I feel like that number goes to like 5, 6, 7 purposeful plays that are meant to get the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs' hands in the air. So especially if you draft him in the first round. I like this landing spot, but obviously there are other landing spots that are more ideal to be a workhorse, but I think this is a good landing spot personally.
Yeah.
All right. At number 25, we have the fourth wide receiver, which is Kayshon Boutte. I like Kayshon Boutte. I would really not like this landing spot in Baltimore. It's not that I don't like Lamar Jackson. I love him. I want him as my quarterback for my franchise. I want him as the quarterback in my Dynasty league. But I don't want the wide receiver attached to Lamar Jackson anymore. I think he's more than proven that he's not able to create a consistent wide receiver. I know that you could argue, well, he's not really had a wide receiver who's been able to stay healthy for him. Agreed. However, even when Rashad Bateman was at his best, what was he getting? 4 targets a game? 5 targets a game? So I'm not sure that there will ever be enough consistency for a wide receiver as far as targets and opportunities go in this offense for me to really be in love with him. So personally, I'm going to stick with fading Kayshon if this is the landing spot.
Yeah, one thing I've been thinking about is that, because I do believe this is a real.
You cut out there a little bit.
I do. One thing I've been thinking about is that I do believe the Ravens could potentially draft a wide receiver. It may not be in the first, it could be in the second, whatever the case may be. But if they do because Rashad Bateman was a first round pick, they need to change up the game plan. Running has been really successful. The defense has been really successful throughout the years. Your offense has only been on the ground with Lamar, and he's make these amazing plays. But like, you need to change that. Like, you don't need to, but like, you need another factor in offense, because it can't just be Lamar. And I think like, if Kayshon Boutte is there with, Rashad Bateman, I think it could help. Do we know how it's going to work in a fantasy perspective? Probably not. But like, for the team itself, I think this really helps. And then we can see like a birth of finally, okay, this could be fantasy relevant here. May not be in the first year, but it could be in the second year.
I don't know. I just think at this point, Lamar knows how to win. And that doesn't necessarily include forcing a ball to a wide receiver. Tom Brady, in the last 3 or 4 years, it's been heavily targeting his wide receivers. Derek Carr, heavily targeting Devontae Adams. Aaron Rodgers, heavily targeting Devontae Adams. I just don't think that if Kayshon lands here, there will ever be a scenario in which he averages 8 to 9 targets, a year. And that's what really concerns me with him. Especially because I still like Rashad Bateman. So now you have those guys competing with Mark Andrews. It's already a small plate, and now we have more people added to it. So, I don't know. I personally am not in love with it, but I love his talent. Love his talent.
Yeah, exactly.
At number 26, the Titans go offensive line. At 27, the Cowboys go safety. At 28, your New York Giants go cornerback. At number 29, the Dolphins lost their pick. At number 30, the Vikings go cornerback. Chiefs go edge rusher. And then the Eagles go edge rusher. Now, there's a couple names that we really didn't get to talk about because they weren't drafted. But guess what? We have a second round. So let's go ahead and do some quick fire reactions to some of these landing spots. Twitter version reactions, if you will. Okay? So we have Josh Downs going to the Cleveland Browns. Personally, I like this landing spot. A la what Will Fuller did for Deshaun Watson in Houston. It's weird because Donovan Peoples-Jones feels like a similar type of player as far as what he can offer to your team, different body types. But Josh Downs, I personally think he could step into that team and compete for the number 2 role. Where David Bell is there, Donovan Peoples-Jones is there. I think there's enough talent for Josh Downs to potentially win out that number 2 role. So it's at minimum very intriguing with Deshaun Watson being there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I personally don't think it makes sense with DPJ, David Bell, and Coop, but let's see what happens.
Yeah. All right, at number 42, Anthony Richardson goes to the Lions. The more I think about it, the more I believe that Anthony Richardson should go back to Florida this year or next year. He's a Gainesville hometown kid, grew up a Gators fan, hasn't really delivered what I think he would want to have delivered to the University of Florida yet. And also there's a lot of development still left for him to do. However, if we're saying Anthony Richardson is an early second, but we're also putting a top 7 status on Will Levis, I think that's absolutely bonkers. Because if we're going based off of pure upside and you know, if I want to mold a quarterback, Anthony Richardson would be my choice. So, but I think if this is a landing spot, I would love it for him.
Yeah, agreed. I like the spot. I mean, you go with J-Mo, Amon-Ra, and the legs there with Anthony Richardson. But we got to wait and see if he actually goes. I'll be really surprised if he does declare to and goes into the draft. It'll be crazy if he does.
I think he'll return. All right. We have Tanner McGee going to the Colts. Darnell Washington to the Commanders. Jalen Hyatt to the Panthers, who didn't get to draft anyone, did they? No, they drafted an edge rusher.
They drafted edge rusher.
Who knows what their quarterback situation is, but that could be a nice combination, Jalen Hyatt and DJ Moore. We have Rashee Rice to the Bears, which could be a nice landing spot for him. Cedric Tillman to the Giants. I want to see some of these running backs. A.T. Perry to the Texans. Yeah, Zach Evans to the Falcons. Love this landing spot. Obsessed with that landing spot if that were to happen. Big Zach Evans fan. I would love that landing spot for him. Zay Flowers to the Colts. A lot of people are liking Zay Flowers. Dalton Kincaid to the Chargers.
Okay.
I know you like Dalton Kincaid. That's a nice landing spot for him.
It is a nice landing spot. I would definitely love that. And I love that Is this the first time he's on draft boards?
No, but I think it's the first time we've seen him this high.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you want. I think he's really talented, man. He's a really talented guy. He can block. Yeah. He's a great pass catcher. So let's see how high, if he can get any higher. Yeah. You know, but going to the Chargers, that's exactly what we want. Didn't Michael Mayer get to the Chargers in one of our mock drafts once?
In one of them he did, yeah. And this one he went to the Lions, but in one of them he has, for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Tyler Van Dyke to the Bucks, I'm assuming as like a project. Devin Akane to the Dolphins, which honestly, I don't think personally, it's me, myself, and your belief, I believe, that Akane's game in the NFL will be so extremely limited. He will never be a workhorse running back. You are going to have to put him in a system that's going to be creative in the ways that they use him. If he goes to the Dolphins, It would be insane because of the speed on that team. Not only do you have Tyreek, Jalen Waddle. Honestly, Devin Akane might be probably not faster than Tyreek, but he might be the second fastest player on that team ahead of Jalen Waddle. Akane's probably the fastest player in the country right now in college football. So I would be very intrigued to see how his usage would be under Mike McDaniels. But outside of his speed, he's very limited, so I still don't like. It would make me more intrigued about him, but he doesn't jump my boards a lot with this landing spot.
Yeah, agreed. I completely agree. It would be interesting. I mean, if they were to draft somebody, because like if he were to go, you're just seeing how like they're just utilizing people's speed and they're just coaching them up as football. You know, like that will mean a lot in my opinion. But yeah, it would be interesting.
Got Jaron Hall, quarterback on BYU, going to your Giants. Parker Washington to the Chiefs. I'm surprised the lack of running backs.
Yeah,
in
you
this,
haven't seen Tucker. You haven't seen Zach Charbonnet. You haven't seen.
I think all those guys are going to go
Blake.
at least in the third round. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't imagine Charbonnet, Tucker. Well, Evans got drafted. Charbonnet, Tucker, Blake Corum. I don't imagine those guys getting out of the third round personally.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
And I'm surprised Devin Akane went ahead of all of them.
I wonder, you know what I was going to say? Damn, there was something I was going to say.
Zach Charbonnet should have been drafted. Yeah, for sure.
With Will Levis, right? If Will Levis performing so bad, why do all these people still have so high for someone like a Tyler Van Dyke coming into the season? People were saying Tyler Van Dyke was just as good or as high as Will Levis. I think the hype with Will Levis was a lot significantly higher, but like no one's adjusting the Will Levis. You know, like it's just still.
You're
top
saying
10.
He should be lower.
No, I'm saying like if
Or are you saying are you advocating for him?
No, I'm saying he should be lower. Like if he's performing really bad, he's not taking progressions each and every week. Why are all these whatever you call it, you know, these mocks, I wanted to call these analysts, I guess you could say, that do the mock drafts still have Will Levis so high? Because he's probably performing either just on par or just as bad as Tyler Van Dyke.
It's probably the same reason that people had Sam Howell so high in last year's mock drafts all the way up to the draft, and Malik Willis, because he's a quarterback and because he has these intangible assets to him. You know, I'm the furthest thing from a Will Levis truther. I don't understand the hype, but that would be my guess as to why people still have him ranked so high, is because people are willing to take that 1 to 5% shot that he ends up being the next Josh Allen, which I don't know. Josh Allen had a lot more progression in his collegiate career than Will Levis has had. I don't know. I guess that's why. But you're right. Yeah. I haven't had a first round grade on him all year. Even when I scouted his film last year when he had a better year, I had him more as a second round to third round quarterback. I still view him that way, so I don't know if the hype is going to die. He's just one of those names that catches fire, and people want to have him that high, I guess.
Yeah, it makes sense. PFF right now has Bryce first, Will Levis third, CJ fourth.
What?
Yeah. If you go on PFFs right now, they have Bryce, Will Levis, CJ in the PFF ranks.
Okay.
How can we get the full rank?
I think they also had Sam Howell as their quarterback one in last year's class.
They have Bryce Young, Will Anderson second, Will Levis third, CJ fourth, and then just continues to go from there.
So they actually have Will Levis as the quarterback two in the class.
In the class, yeah. That's what I guess that's essentially
right. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I'm sure PFF has their reasonings, and I'm sure they're going to adjust it as they go.
Oh my gosh, they also have Blake Crom second in the draft class, and they have
a lot of people are
Gibbs.
really high on Blake.
1, 2, 3. They have Jahmyr Gibbs fourth. GG's.
Yeah, look, I really do enjoy listening to PFF, but I don't always agree with their rankings. They don't even have Zach Evans on this page.
Well, you know how I feel about Zach Evans. I mean,
yeah. You hate Zach Evans. That's how you feel about him. Quentin Johnson, wide receiver 1. Yeah, it's interesting, man. That's PFF. What can you do?
What can you do, you know? Just can't agree with all of it.
Yeah. Joseph, I noticed that you had your final golden goat. You finally hit the evolution, brother. Thank you so much for your support over the last months as well.
That's awesome.
Just catching up with the chat. I'm struggling ranking Evans, Tucker, and Charbonnet, which is understandable for sure. They don't even have Zach Charbonnet on there, bro. I didn't see Zach Charbonnet. But they have Devin Akane ahead of him.
I already closed it out. Who else is on that list? I'm looking. Tank, Devin Akane, Jameer Gibbs, Sean Tucker. Like that. Sean Tucker third. Let's go, baby. I wouldn't put him third. But
it's interesting. Joseph says, I watched Sean Tucker, and he just looks so good. He has some stinker games stat-wise, but he just seems like the perfect RB.
I think so.
I definitely like Zach Evans or Sean Tucker as well. I have him right in that same tier with Zach Evans. Yeah. In that third tier behind Bijan and Jameer. Yeah. It's interesting. We're going to leave some time now for a Q&A. So if you guys do have any questions, feel free to drop them. Do us a favor, as always, if you could do us a favor and drop a like on the stream. Kirk Cousins is not working right now.
You like that?
Oh, shoot. Anyway, do us a favor, drop a like on the stream. Drop any questions that you have. We'd be happy to leave time for a Q&A right now. If you guys do have any questions about the mock draft, about Dynasty, any trades that you're getting, etc., we'd be happy to leave some time here. I made you look. I can bum my Gucci. Yeah, Zach Evans to the Falcons would be cool. It is weird that they don't have Sean Tucker or Charbonnet in this draft.
Yeah, it is weird, but I'm excited for when's the NFL draft? The 2023.
It'll be in April next year.
Draft, yeah, but usually they have a date already. 2023.
Dustin is asking, do you guys view Elijah Moore as a buy low right now? Would you still want him or be looking to move him? I think Elijah Moore is in a scenario right now where you really don't want to move him because you're not going to get proper value. You're not going to get anywhere near proper value. Still a prospect that we like. It hasn't worked out in the NFL, and it certainly hasn't worked out with Zach Wilson. All of his really good games have come without Zach Wilson. He's not the priority, I wouldn't say either, but there's hope that things could change or that he could be moved. So I don't think he's someone I'm willing to move away from right now because I don't think anyone's going to be willing to give me the price I would need for him.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree. And there was a lot of talks of him being moved, and they were saying that he wasn't going to be moved, but he wanted to be moved. What if he does that again in this offseason and they find the right price? They have a little bit more time to move Elijah Moore, and he goes to a better scenario. And I think that's exactly what I'm personally hoping for. I'm a massive believer in Elijah Moore. I'm still believing in Elijah Moore at the Jets. And at the same time, they already announced that they're going to move into the slot, which where he was shining in college in Ole Miss. And they put him on the outside when they drafted him, because he didn't have anyone else. So maybe if they put him in the slot and they can, change that up, I would definitely like that. But right now I am holding or buying Elijah Moore on the low if I can.
Right now, wide receiver 50, according to the community, late second. And I guess that does make him a buy for me then. I would be willing to buy Elijah Moore for that price. Names around him. You got like Alan Lazard, Keenan Allen, Tyler Boyd, Josh Palmer. I'd be willing to send all those players away to get Elijah Moore. So I guess it does. It does make him a buy low at this point. Is it weird that I see Quentin Johnson like a mini D-Hop? I'm glad you said that, Michael, because that was pretty much the comp I had for him. The ceiling comp I had for him was a DeAndre Hopkins. So that's my current comp for him, but we don't have any final comps for these players just yet.
Yeah, we'll probably get some more comps a little bit more when we get in. Now, I don't mind having D-Hop there. I know one thing we said that we liked if he were to get drafted to a team. I think we said Alshon Jeffrey. Did we say that? No, who was that we said? Who it was?
I can't remember.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't Quentin, but
yeah,
we like it.
I recently got him for Sky Moore and 2/4. Would you do that, or do you still have faith in Sky? Jeez, Louise, man, I don't freaking know with Sky Moore. Sky Moore is like the biggest wild card right now. I have no idea.
Exactly, it's the biggest wild card, especially with Juju playing well now. If Juju wasn't playing well, we'll have seen an easier path for Sky to get onto the field. Even with the addition of Kadarius Toney. But at the moment, Juju is playing well. Obviously, he got injured. Just doesn't look good for Sky Moore owners right now. I'm happy to get a second for Sky Moore if I could, personally.
Same.
But I'm also in the waiting period. So
he's probably, to be honest, he's probably the bust of the rookie drafts last year.
Probably.
I'm trying to think of another player that would have busted more. Maybe James Cook.
Maybe.
James Cook and Sky Moore are probably the two biggest busts.
You just can't trust anyone that goes. I mean, at the moment, it feels like you can't trust. The last two players that went to the Chiefs, that was a first-round pick, Clyde and Sky.
Yeah, well, Sky wasn't a first-round pick. But
well, I mean, in the draft, like in mock drafts, like rookie drafts.
Right.
Like those are the two first guys that were like, okay, we're going to Patrick Mahomes. We're buying all into these guys, and I'm just like, damn, maybe that's just the wrong move.
Yeah.
Maybe next time, if that is the case.
Yeah, I don't disagree there. Well, if there's no more questions, we just want to say a huge thank you again to everyone joining us.
Absolutely.
Do us a favor, drop a like if you don't mind. Subscribe, of course, and we will see you guys in the next live streams. We got some videos coming out this weekend, and huge love to everyone who supports us as a YouTube member, as over on Patreon. Really, really appreciate the support, guys, and we will talk to you very soon.
Love.